Void Rivals is back, and in this issue, Darak and Solila are foolishly maybe crossing the wastelands while a brutal cyborg bounty hunter is on their trail. We're going to talk about it right here in our review of Void Rivals number 7 from Image Comics. See you in 3. And welcome back to Comical Opinions. This is our review of Void Rivals number 3 from Image Comics and Skybound. In this issue, which is the second volume after a multi-month hiatus, Darak and Solila head into the wastelands to find a secret refuge. Meanwhile, Zalalak enlists a ruthless hunter to find the escapees. And it may or may not turn out. We'll find out. But before we get started, please like, share, comment, subscribe. Hit that bell for notification. Let us know how we're doing. Your attention is greatly appreciated. And make sure you stay through to the end to find out our final tally and score. So let's talk about the credits. Void Rivals number 7 is written by Robert Kirkman. Art by Lorenzo De Felici. Colors by Patricio Del Pesce. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Letters by Russ Wooten. And the cover is also done by Lorenzo De Felici. So it has been a while. The series is on hiatus, and now we're getting back to the second arc, or the second half of this long arc. So technically it's the second volume. Let's talk about what happened last time. Solila got wind of a prophecy in which he is meant to participate in reunifying the ring, which would bring the Agorians and the Zertonians back together as a unified people. She didn't quite believe it, but she received this strange little artifact from the mother of the witches, or cult, if you want to call it that, or the religious leader sect, who said that you have to do this. She's kept it to herself so far, but we know that's happened. Meanwhile, Darak received help from rebels, if you will, who are also interested in reuniting the peoples in this giant one ring, and they escaped together. There was a massive chase in the last issue, and what happened? They eventually dove off the edge of their half of the ring into the wastelands where nobody wants to tread. And that's where we left off. It was a sort of a to-be-continued cliffhanger that completed the first 6 issues, and now we're picking up in the second half of this major arc where Darak and Solila are heading into the wastelands. We get a brief flashback where we see that Darak 10 years ago actually had already been in the wastelands and maybe had figured out how to cross it, or at least find a safe refuge somewhere at the midway point of the wastelands that separate Agoria from Zertonia. He's not really divulging any details, and we don't really see what he finds, but we knew that through basically a commercial accident where he was running this sort of forklift mech trek loader that fell off, that he had to go through the wastelands to survive. So he's had some experience navigating the wastelands. We know he knows where he's intended to go, and he's asking Solila to trust him on faith that he's going to get them where they need to be. Meanwhile, Zalalak, who is the head of the Zertonians, my goodness, all the tongue twisters, he reaches out to a gentleman by the name of Proximus. And they have a brief conversation where he says, Proximus, you're the best hunter around. You're the best bounty hunter that I could possibly ask for. I need you to go kill them and bring them back. Or capture them alive if you can. So what we find out is that conversation is happening inside of Proximus's mind as a sort of a virtual conversation. When Proximus agrees, we pull back and we see that Proximus is really just like a partial torso and partial skull, and he's being placed inside this mechanized cyborg body that gives him enhanced strength, enhanced speed, sensory capabilities, and all kinds of stuff that makes him an elite hunter. Also, during their internal conversation where they negotiate the contract, if you want to call it that, we find out that there is some kind of prophecy or some form of forecast that if somebody crosses the wastelands, they might awake or unleash something called Gallant, which is unknown. It's really just a hint of something that might come about in the future, but there is a risk that anybody crossing the wastelands might happen upon this thing or person and unlock it or unleash it, and Zalalak does not want that, and Proximus agrees. So there is some sort of joint understanding of prophecy and understanding of the history of their people and that's what they're going after. So, cut to now. Where are we now? The escapees, Darak and Solila, are crossing the wastelands. They're trying to find this refuge that Darak warned them about, and they encounter all kinds of deadly windstorms, and they have to extremely ration their food because it's about a 6-week trek, and they're making progress. But Darak knows that there's something up with Solila because she's musing over this little artifact that she got from the Holy Mother, and she's keeping it close to the vest. But he knows that there's something going on, something in the back of Solila's mind that's troubling her, or at least occupying her thoughts. Meanwhile, Proximus gets suited up, and he is in this very large, intimidating cyborg body, and he heads out after them. And that's pretty much where we end up. So, if you're wondering where this fits into the Energon universe, so this is sort of like an interesting side bit or tidbit that's factoid, if you will. We know this takes place within the Transformers Energon universe, but in this issue, and actually for several issues for a while now, there really hasn't been much tie to the Transformers other than they made some cameos very early on in the series. In this issue, there are no ties to the Transformers that we can tell. The name of this Galliant type figure, whether or not that has something to do with the Transformers, is yet to be determined, but there are no cameos. There's no obvious ties to the Transformers in this issue that we can tell. So it's part of the greater Energon universe, but not directly tied to a familiar IP like the Transformers. Just want to give you a heads up about them. Okay, so what do we like about Void Rivals number 7? This issue really gives you a sense of momentum and foreshadowing and moving towards something. So obviously it's now a chase. The original arc, the first 6 issues, sort of was feeling the universe out, giving you the understanding of their peoples and a lot of world building and character building, which is all good and is actually all great the way it was done by Kirkman. This now feels like it's all about moving forward and moving towards a goal. So right now the immediate goal is getting Darak and Solila to that midway point where Darak knows there's some kind of refuge or safe place for them to rest and recoup and gather resources, but we don't know what it is. So there's a lot of intrigue and mystery building, and Kirkman is planting a lot of seeds that makes you feel like you're moving towards something. You're building momentum, you're building anticipation, you're building curiosity, and that's exactly what you want out of a first issue for a new arc, or I would say the second half of a larger arc. What didn't we like about the issue? Lots of names are being thrown around as far as prophecies and individuals, and some of the transitions are a little bit kludgy, a little bit clunky. Not too bad. The down points are minor. Overall, this is a great issue. So the down points are like, I'd like a little bit more information about Proximus. The fact that Proximus and Zalak were talking in a virtual reality wasn't exactly clear until you figure it out a little bit later. So there's some points where some of the points could have been made a little bit more clearly. Some of the scene transitions could have been a little bit more obvious, or at least add a caption or two to kind of set things out. But overall, it was a great issue. All the down points are just minor. What do we think about the art? The art is okay. Lorenzo De Felici does a good job. The figure work is not particularly detailed. The overall composition feels a little flat, and that's just the nature of the art style that Dave Felici employs. Plus, there's a few points where the choreography just doesn't feel particularly smooth. For example, there is one point where in the 10-year flashback where Darak falls off this ledge, but it's not quite clear how he's falling off a ledge, and it just seems like he's transitioning from this platform into sand, but how is he falling? It didn't really work out too well. So you kind of had to use your imagination based upon what they're describing is happening, but visually speaking, it didn't match the description, or at least it didn't present the same way, or it didn't present in a way that made sense. So the art's okay, it's not great, but overall, the story is really wins out. So if you can look past the art a little bit in the details, overall it's okay. So final thoughts. What do we think about Void Rivals number 7 from Image Comics? Great story setup, lots of momentum and forward direction, and makes you feel like you're being pulled towards something. The pacing is building, the anticipation is building, and you feel like you're on a train towards a very specific destination that hopefully is going to pay off, which is exactly what you want. You want to feel like you're being pulled somewhere, and that's what's happening here. The art is okay, but could be better. There are a few points where the story is throwing a lot of information at you that wasn't quite clear what was happening, but the negatives are minor compared to the positives. So overall, we're going to give Void Rivals number 7 from Image Comics a solid 9 out of 10. And hope you enjoyed this review. Thank you for joining us today. And if you want to hear or see more reviews just like this one, stay tuned through the outro.